This is me with my serious editing face on. Hi lovelies, my name's Dara and I'm trans non-binary. When I first started looking online for people like me, I found plenty of non-binary folk in their 20s who were assigned AFAB, that is, assigned female at birth, but only a few who were AMAB, or assigned male at birth, like me. I mean, which was great, and they've been really helpful to me in my transition so far, but they're all in their early 20s or mid-30s at the latest. Once I got involved in a few online support groups through Reddit, Facebook, and most helpfully Zoom, I found quite a few AMAB trans folk of my age or older and thought, yay! But then it turned out almost all of them identify as trans women. So again, I felt like I was a kind of random patchwork trans person who I could find points of identification with a few groups, but couldn't find somebody who was just like me. And at times I felt like maybe I'm just not trans enough. You see, someone just like me posted in one of the Facebook groups that I joined, and there were a lot of them, saying that they'd just joined and noticed there didn't seem to be many AMAB non-binary folk in the group, and suddenly we were coming out of the woodwork. Not only that, but several mentioned that they were older, like me, and overweight, also like me, which might explain their hesitance to post, given that most of the groups reward the posting of photos and, well, if you're older and flabby and not all that confident in your appearance, then maybe you don't want to post a photo. Another thing that I found interesting was a comment by another AMAB Enby that was about how a lot of us were mostly silent because we kept getting talked over by AFAB Enby folk. Now, I found that comment interesting because it resonated with me too. I've noticed that whenever someone identifies themselves as AMAB and asks a question of the group, asking for input from others who have experienced similar things, there are always comments from AFAB folk, which usually start with, "I'm AFAB, but... ... And I always feel annoyed and a bit patronised by those comments. I mean, look, I stay out deliberately of discussions about binders and top surgery because I don't think it'd be helpful for someone with breast dysphoria for me to talk about how much I want breasts or how comfortable I feel in my new bra. Very comfortable, by the way. It's like the non-binary equivalent of misogyny. Anyway, we AMAB Enbys can't even have space to share our own experiences without having to trawl through comments made by people who think that they know what it's like but can't possibly experience it the same way. And then their comments get replies from other AFAB folk who resonate with that experience, and before you know it, the original poster has been made redundant in their own post. Look, just let me clarify though, this doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. And look, as someone who has experienced white, cis, male privilege for most of my life, I honestly don't feel like I have much right to complain about how it feels to not have that privilege anymore. But I think I kind of have a responsibility to address it when I see it. Anyway, I mentioned in my comment on that thread that I'd thought some time ago about starting a YouTube channel so there would be representation of people like me, even if I had to do it myself. And another commenter said that they'd thought the same thing. So that inspired me to action. So here I am! I'm here to say that older, AMAB, overweight, late transitioning, non-binary folk exist, and we don't have to be invisible. If you're still watching this far, I've got to tell you, life has become a little bit confusing for me. I mean, I'm about to turn 50, and I'm only just now learning what it means to live my life as my authentic self, when that self flies in the face of what society has been conditioning me to accept as the only way for the past 50 years. But look, I don't want to bore you to death with my whole transition story in one long, dull video, no matter how many funny faces I pull. So I want to just cover one or two key themes for now, and then talk about something else in later videos. So remember, I'm doing this for all the older AMAB non-binary trans folk out there, underweight, overweight or otherwise, who are looking for others just like you, so you don't feel as alone and freaky and not trans enough as I did when I started this journey. And if it's not already obvious, I'm not a professional anything by any means. I'm just someone who has a need and has decided to meet it myself. As much as possible, I want these videos to be a conversation, I guess, for those of us who feel underrepresented. So please pass this link on to anyone, any friends that you think this might be relevant to. Leave comments down below, and please be nice to me and to each other. If I have to moderate the comments, I will, but I don't want to have to. Tell me what you want me to talk about. What are the things you love about being non-binary? What are the challenges for you that younger folk or AFAB folk might not necessarily have to face in the same way as us? Do you want to talk about medical transitioning? Do you want to talk about clothes sizing, or hair colouring, or beards, or dysphoria, or coming out to family? I'm probably going to start with the things I wanted to know when I first started transitioning, and I'll just go from there until I start hearing from some of you. So to start the ball rolling, the most important thing for me that I've discovered so far is that gender transitioning is a long journey. No matter which direction you're going in, and although when everything's new and bright and shiny and exciting, we might want everything now, I know I sure as heck did, there is a lot to be gained by taking our time and trying new things just one little step at a time. This is especially important, and unfortunately inevitable, if you're interested in getting gender-affirming hormone therapy, commonly referred to as HRT or hormone replacement therapy, but I prefer to think of it as gender-affirming. Anyway, it takes a long time to be seen at a gender clinic, or to find a GP who will provide gender-affirming hormone therapy with informed consent without you having to jump through all the hoops of getting letters from this psychologist and that psychiatrist, and especially during a pandemic when face-to-face consultations aren't possible, and so you sit on a waiting list for a while. And for some of us, it can even take a while to understand our new selves enough to know whether we want gender-affirming hormone therapy in the first place. Look, when I first started, I was convinced that, yeah, estrogen, that sounds fantastic. I want all the effects. Not sure how I feel about growing boobs, though. It turns out I'm a champion in the art of denial. If I cast my mind back to what life was like as a kid, as a teenager, in my alone times when no one else was around, oh my goodness. I have wanted breasts for as long as I can remember. So, like, that's the first thing I want out of gender-affirming hormone therapy. But for some reason, I had myself convinced that, I don't know, because again, internalized transphobia, and I didn't think that it was right to want that sort of thing, because I was assigned a male at birth. But anyway. So it's taken me quite a while to feel comfortable changing aspects of my presentation and discovering first of all what's comfortable, what I like, and what I'm brave enough to present in public. I realise that I might not even necessarily be typical of older AMAB non-binary folk, but I have learnt heaps from watching younger folks on YouTube because I'm learning about this as I go too. So hopefully as you watch this, some of what I'm talking about will resonate with you. That's all I can hope for, really. Besides, one of the ways I don't feel typical is that I don't have a history of feeling dysphoria. I never felt like I'd been born in the wrong body, but I am most definitely trans. For me, the definition of trans is not cis. So the definition of cis is somebody whose internal concept of self and their gender agrees with the gender they were assigned at birth. In my case, I was assigned the gender of male at birth. My sense of self and my internal sense of gender does not equate or resonate with that. It doesn't resonate with me. It's not who I am. So my internal sense of self definitely does not agree with being male. So therefore I'm not cis, therefore I'm trans. And look, I've lived a life with a very effective defense mechanism of denial, and it's taken me a lot of work to dismantle this and discover the person that I've been hiding from myself. It even took me a while to settle on a name too. I mean, I came up with it pretty quickly to start with, but I took some time and considered a lot of other names, and in discussion with some of my family, I ended up coming back to my first choice. Speaking of family, I'm lucky that my family have been pretty supportive of me. My parents, especially my mother, have been surprisingly supportive. I say surprisingly because my mum's fairly religious, but I've had and felt nothing but support and unconditional love from her and my dad ever since I came out. My daughter is a fantastic ally. I never say this right. She's not metal, she's an ally among her mostly trans and gender diverse and sexually diverse friendship group. In fact, I think she describes herself as the token cishet female in her group of friends. My sister has also always been a great support to me. It probably helps that her eldest also came out as non-binary about a year ago before I did, at the age of 23. So some of the groundwork was already laid when I came out. So I think I'm in probably a unique situation, maybe, and fairly lucky. Look, I'm going to have to leave it at that for today, and I think I'll come back next week, or depending on how long it takes for me to figure out how to edit this thing, with a discussion about dysphoria. Unless anyone has a pressing need for me to discuss something else, just drop me a note in the comments and I'll add it in. But my voice is going. I can feel it. It wants to drop, and that's not me. Anyway, this is all for now. Ciao, my lovelies. So this is how I usually start all my video calls. Putting on a little bit of makeup around the eyes. Now I've got heavy lidded eyes that kind of slope downwards, and I learned that there's a little trick you can do to sort of open the eyes up. So you put some white in this corner here, and then you go over it with the colour you want just underneath. So it gives the impression that the eye is actually bigger in that corner, but it's really hard to get it to stick there. Now this is a really simple one that I'm doing. This is the most basic of the eyeshadow setups that I do, and it's just a very, very basic blue. If I had a purple, I'd use it, but I came up with this one when my hair was much more of a solid blue, and it matched. I liked it, and it's quite simple and quick, as you can see. Hasn't taken very long at all. And if I want to get dramatic, I add in a bit more colour, then dab in the dark blue and add that into the outside corners and smudge it a bit, and that gives me a sort of a more dramatic effect. Lightly bring it in. Okay. Alright, that'll do. Don't want to look too over the top. And what does this look like when I put my glasses back on? Bring out my hair. Now I just need to add a touch of lips so you can see what I'm saying. Okay, not dramatic, not obvious. I might just grab a tissue and gently bite down, removes the gloss, and there we go. Now, I've got a bit of shadow here because I didn't shave today, but that doesn't matter. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, so let's get going.